Well, I like to have fun and I have a big creative personality. And the truth is, opera used to be the popular art form. It
Right.
was pop, and opera is where experimentation was happening.
Hello and welcome to NCPA on Stage, where we explore the stunning performances at China's National Center for the Performing Arts. I'm your host, Ying. Joyce Donato is an acclaimed American mezzo-soprano, celebrated for her versatility, powerful voice, and compelling performances. With a career spanning major opera houses worldwide, she has received numerous awards, including multiple Grammy Awards. Donato recently wowed the Beijing audience with her Eden recital. I've got the privilege to sit down with Joyce to talk about the inspiration behind the concert. Thank you for joining us, Joyce. I'm so excited to have you on the show. You know, I had the privilege of seeing your recital in 2019 at the NCPA, and I was so impressed by your innovative way of presenting opera arias. I still remember your extravagant costumes and makeup and the multimedia elements on stage. So has this become your unique way of presenting recitals?
Not every recital, but it sort of burst open the door for me to realize that I don't always have to do things the way they've always been done. I still will give traditional recitals, and I enjoy that very much. But what happened with this recital in 2019, War and Peace, was I felt so compelled to use the music that I love, that has existed for a long time, that speaks about the same themes I struggle with as a citizen in the 21st century, and to present that in a way that really requires that the audience enter into the project and the experience a bit more deeply than they might if I was just standing by a piano with some yellow lights on me. And so that really showed me that it can have a big impact to present a concert that way. And that's what I bring to Beijing now, is my sort of second evolution of this idea in Eden.
I guess it might represent a new direction for recitals. Could that be possible?
You know, I meet a lot of younger singers now that feel that this approach has really opened the door for them to also experiment and innovate. And I think that's really valuable. Not at the expense of a beautiful standard song recital. I think those can still exist, and they can be very moving, and I still enjoy doing that. But I think there's something really powerful about using this music that we love, that was written centuries ago, and packaging it in a way that feels very contemporary. Because these pieces, for example, I sing in Eden a piece by Cavalli, so written almost 400 years ago, where the final line is almost a screamed recitative that says, "No more war." And that's a cry from 4 centuries ago that is as equally imperative and modern today as it was then. And so that connects us throughout time as a species, you know, it's our common humanity that we're still screaming about this.
It's really exciting to see someone pushing the boundaries of what opera can be. I think you have a very distinctive style. You know, that's quite different from what I usually see in the opera world. I mean, your outfits, your hairstyles, are more like from the world of pop music. Can you tell us a bit about how your personal style has evolved over the years?
Well, I like to have fun, and I have a big creative personality. And the truth is, opera used to be the popular art form. It
Right.
was pop.
Yeah.
And the divas and the castrati and the singers, they were shocking in their fashion, and opera is where experimentation was happening. Now we look back on it and it feels traditional, but it wasn't traditional at the time. It was always innovative, it was always forward thinking. And in fact, it's the Baroque world that I think, I started singing Handel 25 years ago and fell in love with it. But I fell in love with it through conductors that showed me how modern it is and how daring it is. And certainly the theatrical aesthetic of Baroque opera, it was shocking and over the top and extreme. And I think, when I first started in the world of opera, it felt like it was sort of large women with big hairstyles standing on the edge of the stage. And I'm being a little bit reductive about it, but that wasn't me. And when I wanted to take the stage, I wanted the audience to feel my love of this music, but to also understand a bit of who I am. Yeah.
Right. It's always inspiring, to bring new elements to ancient culture. And this time you are bringing a brand new repertoire entitled Eden. And you served as both mezzo-soprano and producer of the program. Can you share some inspirations behind it?
A deep, deep desire for anyone who encounters this project to just reconsider how connected we are to the natural world, that we actually are a part of the natural world. We're not separate from it. Some of the biggest experiences of my life were, I've taken a few trips to Africa and completely transformed the way I looked at the natural world. My first real understanding of how small human beings are in the context of the planet and the scope of the natural world, that blew my mind, and it really ignited a desire for me to understand the natural world better. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I've become a real fan of gardening. I love spending time in my garden, and I feel how healing it is, how important it is to be out in the world. Not necessarily the urban jungle, but the real world. And I think that holds the key for a lot of the problems that I see our society facing. Disconnection from each other, an imbalance of the world that is, I think, quite sick. I feel like we're aching. There's a lot of angst and anxiety in general across the planet that I've seen. And I think we've forgotten or we've removed ourselves from the fact that Mother Nature, that the natural world, takes very good care of us. The air may not always be clean, but we have the oxygen we need to breathe. We have water. We have an abundance of vegetation. We have the sun giving us vitamins and nourishment. We have the stars at night to really set our imagination on fire, to look at these extraordinary heavens, the skies above us, and think, what is all of that? And who am I? Constantly, nature is there going, hello, hello, human being, look down, look at this flower, look up, look at this tree, look at this mountain, and feel that you are a part of this. And I think by forgetting about the majesty and the wonder of the natural world, we start to diminish who we are and what we're a part of. And so I'm a personality that I always like to bring the positive and approach issues from the positive. And I think there's real power in this project of Eden to remind people of how harmonious and beautiful we are meant to be.
I am but a single seed. How can I be powerful if it is only me? Dreaming in the dawn of day, wishing that the morning dew swept solitude away. In earth's new heaven, in earth's new heaven, we are the ones we've been waiting for us. We are the seed and we are the forest. Nature to thrive with permission to flourish. Now and the love we allow keeps us nourished. Sun's golden light flows like wind through the trees. Spirit aligned, a lifetime of ease. Everyone, everywhere living in peace. The flowering future depends on our lead.
The repertoire of Eden spans several centuries, from the Baroque era to modern times, featuring 11 composers. How do you select the pieces, and what factors are most important in your choice?
I wanted to tell a story throughout this just over an hour concert and experience. And I wanted to start by questioning, like, what is happening? What are we doing here? What's going on? Are we going to be okay? And to look for a return to the perfect spring day, where you're having a picnic by a river and the breeze is perfect and the sun is great. And you say, oh yeah, this is paradise. This is where I want to stay. And then to look out and see that not everything is well, that there has been fire and there has been flood and there have been plagues and there have been destruction to our world. And to look at that squarely and the horror that is, to turn around and say, I want to do better so that I earn my place on this extraordinary planet, that I'm not harming it, but I'm connecting to it and helping take care of it. So that's the story I wanted to tell. And with my partners in the orchestra, Il Pomodoro, who are fantastic, who normally only play Baroque music, we all decided, let's do whatever we want. And the first piece we chose set us on this journey in the most incredible way, and it's The Unanswered Question by Charles Ives. This is a 20th century composer that is normally, I would describe it as very crunchy, atonal, difficult music. And I thought, what are we doing? We can't start with this music, we do Baroque music usually. And then I heard it, and it was the only way. It was as if it was always composed with this project in mind, because it sets us off. The first sound that the audience hears is this very harmonious, almost as if it has always been happening, this sound in the strings, almost imperceptible, the start of it. And it is constant under this entire almost 6-minute piece of music. And you feel as if it's going to go on for the infinity. But over that, you hear a single voice. And this sort of voiceless question that could be asking anything. And it happens 7 times, and each time the woodwinds answer, starting quite simply, but angularly and surgically and mathematically, and with each question, which always remains the same by the voice, it answers with more chaos and more noise and more confusion, as if the answers will never be found in the man-made world. It is really this constant pulse of the cosmos that is represented in the strings that is the comfort. And so by starting with the Charles Ives, it opened up 4 centuries of music that we felt we could choose from. And we chose Copland and Handel and Mahler and Cavalli and Marini and Myslevicek to tell the narrative of this story. And so they don't fall chronologically. On paper, it looks like a disaster. But now that I've sung this almost 45 times, it feels like Winterreise to me. It feels as if these pieces in this order were always meant to be together.
And I noticed there are 3 arias from Christoph Willibald Gluck, the German composer from the 18th century. Why did you choose so many works from him?
So in the crisis moment of this piece of Eden, where I've witnessed the destruction and I'm not able to be at peace with it yet, there's this extraordinary piece called The Furies by Gluck. And it's just orchestral, but you hear the storm, you hear the disconnect, you feel chaos, you feel rage. It feels like the headlines of the news today and all the noise of everything that's happening. And it's really one of the most extraordinary pieces I've ever heard. And Il Pomodoro plays it like blood coming out of their mouth. They play it with all of their soul. And it's arresting. It's an extraordinary piece of music. And we follow that with an aria from Ezio, which is not necessarily nature-driven, but it is somebody who finds themselves by the bank of a river and inspired by the night and the darkness of the night and the absence of light. They've gone through a big tragedy in their life, the loss of the father, the loss of the loved one. And the dolor, the sadness is so deep that it's as if their heart is ripping in two and they are nearly on the edge of madness.
Dalle greche sponde di tragedie feconde le domestiche furi vennero a questi lini nella prole di Cadmo e degli Atridi ad un monarca ingiusto l'ingrata crudità menchi d'orrori un padre traditore colpa m'agghiaccia e lo sposo innocenti sempre in faccia.
And so this for me is the epitome of being out of Eden, out of paradise, complete disconnect from the natural world where we're meant to thrive. But that blockage is so strong. And so Gluck captures these outbursts. I go in a huge octave leaps up into the high register, and it's really like an outcry of somebody who is completely in despair. And I feel in that moment in Eden that it really is the voice of so many people suffering on the planet right now. and comes from 250 years ago. They understood that outcry, and we share that with humanity from across the ages. We're not the first society to be struggling right now. We share that with our ancestors, and I think there's strength to be garnered from what they went through in the past and how they found their way out of these times of tumult. And that's why I think art is so essential in these days. We can turn to it to help us, guide us through this moment in time.
And I also found the name of Rachel Portman, a contemporary female composer known for her achievements in the film industry. What kind of role does she serve?
We felt it was very important if this piece, Eden, conjures up ideas of creation and building something, this building a better world for ourselves. And we felt it was really important that we create a piece of music for this as well. And so I asked her, she's a beautiful composer with a deep sensibility about nature and conjuring up the sound of wind and birds and the air itself. And a good friend of mine, Jean Shear, to write the lyrics. And I said, Jean, we're doing a project about Eden, about creation, about connecting to the world. Write a piece of music, or write the poetry for Rachel. And I didn't give him any other guidelines. And a few months later, he sent an email with the subject heading, "The First Morning of the World." And I got chills just reading the title of this piece.
And in the wind and the river and in the sound of birds singing.
We start Eden with this Charles Ives piece, The Unanswered Question. Again, there's no words in that song, but it sets the atmosphere of the piece. And we follow that with Rachel's piece, The First Morning of the World. And the text is, there is a language without question marks. And you can read it in the rings of trees, and in the wind and the river, and in the sound of birds singing. Has their song changed since the first morning of the world? And so through his poetry, he's able to connect us in our imagination to go, what was that first day like? When the world was unpolluted and untouched, and the world heard a bird sing for the first time. What was that song? And it finishes, this beautiful piece by Rachel, it finishes by my saying, I am here, teach me to sing like the leaves in a tree. Teach me that language that connects me to the world when it was pure. And help me remember the purity of that world. And I find it a very, very strong way to start this concert because it sets the desire for connecting more deeply. And Rachel said it in such a serene, beautiful, running way that you hear the birds, you hear the river, you hear the wind.
The repertoire will end with a lied by Mahler. Its name might be translated like, I've lost the connection with the world. So what do you want to convey with this ending piece?
It's a really daring end to the concert, I have to say, because usually with classical music we build to a big finale and like fireworks, and I would end with a big Rossini aria or something. And most of my concerts I do that because the audience loves it, of course. But this is much more of a meditative experience for the audience, and I think it's such an important moment in time that I wanted the audience to really receive and have an invitation to really consider how to leave the concert hall, what to take with them. And this piece by Mahler, Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen, with text by Ruckert, oftentimes I think is experienced as a very sad song. I'm dead to the world, I'm no longer connected to it. But I think it's a recipe. I think it's what we have to do to overcome the difficulties we're facing right now. We have to realize that the answer does not lie in the commercial world. It doesn't lie in the world as we human beings define it. Our bank account, our job, the number of followers we have on social media. That's not where we're meant to live. The piece ends with the words, I live, I choose to live. Because I'm leaving the material world behind, I choose to live in my heaven, in my love, and in my song. So that place where our spirit is alive, where our essence as a human being is thriving, that's where we're meant to live. That's what you experience when you look at your newborn child. That's what you experience when you hold your grandfather's hand when he's dying. It's the experience when you have your first kiss with somebody. That essence that is alive inside of us. That's where we're meant to live. And not by, these things that oftentimes society will define us by. And that's the message I want the audience to feel.
Es ist mir auch gar nicht daran gelegen, ob sie mich für gestorben hält. Ich kann auch gar nicht sagen dagegen, denn wirklich bin ich gestorben
It's truly impressive to see, the variety and depth of your Eden repertoire. And along with your recital work, you also perform with renowned opera companies worldwide. So I'm wondering, how do you balance your operatic roles with your concert and recital work?
I'm so grateful that I get to do it all. And I think it keeps me very energized and very creative, because I have a big creative appetite, a musical appetite. And I'm not somebody, it's why I'm very happy to be a mezzo-soprano, because I get to play all different kinds of roles and sing all different kinds of repertoire. And I feel very grateful that I get to have such variety in my life. It keeps me very curious. It makes me keep studying and to keep working. And I think that keeps me very humble and energized.
You are widely regarded as one of the finest mezzo-sopranos in the world, and your voice has maintained its clarity and power over many years of performing. Do you have any special techniques to keep your voice in peak condition?
I keep taking lessons.
You're still taking lessons.
I keep taking lessons. And actually, during the pandemic, when I didn't sing, I was based in Spain. And so I was able to do a fair amount of concerts still. But I had a lot of time off. And I was very grateful for it. And I started taking lessons. But the difference during that period, this was now 4 years ago, was that I've always continued studying, but it was always to prepare the next role or to work on a new recital disc or a recording because I was so busy. But having the time off, I was able to just go back and study for fun. And it really, it was a great gift for me. So I have a great teacher. I love working. I love studying. It's important for me to keep my voice in great shape.
Do you have one specific teacher, or are you learning from different teachers?
I have one main teacher, and I have influence from a few others. Yeah.
Okay. And I also saw a lot of master classes by you on the internet, and they're very popular. You know, many netizens like your master classes.
It's wonderful for me to be, traveling in Asia now and hearing from people in India and all different kinds of places that I don't necessarily travel to very often, and they're able to watch my classes online. I do that very specifically because I want to empower a lot of young singers to be great because the world needs great singers out here. And so it's not possible for me to be everywhere. With the internet, with all these streaming opportunities, I'm able to actually have a far reach. And I love that because I love empowering young singers to remember that they love singing, not that it's just something to be, that you have to be perfect and you have to be worked very hard. I want them to work hard. I want them to have exceptional techniques. But I want them out there in the world serving the audience to have huge experiences.
Have you taught any Chinese students?
I just did a masterclass in Shanghai at the conservatory. Well, actually at the Performing Arts Center there. And I worked with 6 singers, and I loved it. It was a wonderful experience.
So do you have any suggestions for Chinese opera singers?
As opera singers, I would say this to everybody, especially younger singers starting out, but the language for me is imperative. I'm here in China and I'm inundated with Mandarin, and I wouldn't know where to begin to speak it. And I'm in awe at so many people that I'm meeting that have such command of the English language when Mandarin is their present company included. And it's extraordinary, but also if Mandarin is your first language, I think it's quite difficult to master French and German and Italian and English, the Romance languages and this. And so I think working on the language is very, very important because that's the key for freedom in the musical expressivity and the phrasing and the psychological element that we have to convey as opera singers. I never want language to be a barrier for the musical experience. Also, that work on languages can happen very early and consistently. I don't think you can study voice 6 hours a day, singing 6 hours a day when you're 18, 19, 20 minutes. That can be fatiguing. You have to also work in rest, vocal rest, and build it carefully. But the study of the language can happen 24 hours a day if you want.
Yeah, and you've performed in China many times before. As you said, you've already given performances in Shanghai and in Beijing. You visited our theater in 2015 and 2019. So can you share some of your experiences and impressions of performing in China, especially your impression of Chinese audiences?
I love the Chinese audience so much because there's a deep appreciation that I find. First of all, that I think somebody like me has made the journey here to share my music on the other side of the world. But the audiences here in general are so much younger than what I see in Europe and in America. And I find that deeply gratifying and encouraging. And they know my recordings, they follow my classes. It feels like we have a long relationship now. And I knew when I built this project that it had to come to Asia, and it had to come here in particular to China. And so I'm so grateful to be invited by the NCPA here in Beijing. Shanghai, we had an extraordinary concert. So it means a lot for me, and I hope to be back many more times.
Thank you, Joyce, for sharing your insights with us. It's been a true pleasure to learn about your incredible journey. Thank you to our audiences for joining us for this interview, and we look forward to seeing more of Joyce's inspiring performances in the future. Until next time, this is Ying Ying. Bye for now.
Was a seed